What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to go through the mid-season player grades for the Winnipeg Jets. So pretty much I'm just going to be going through every Jets player and going through what they've done well this season, go through their stats, and give them a letter grade based off of the first 46 games. Obviously it's not the perfect halfway point in the season at 41 games, but I was too busy earlier last week to do it, so we're going to be doing it today. So we'll be going through every player individually. A lot of the depth players I've put together on a board, and I'll just run through them quickly at the end, because if I go through every single depth player on this team, I'm going to be here all day. The Jets have had so many injuries, so we're going to go through all of those guys at the end, and I'll give my thoughts on them. But without further ado, guys, let's start off with the forwards. First off here, we've got KFC himself, Kyle Connor. Obviously having another fantastic year for the Jets, just an offensive force as he always is. Last season he had 47 goals. I don't think he's gonna, get there this season, but after a little bit of a slow start to start the season, he has been absolutely on fire. 23 goals this season, 32 assists for 55 points in 46 games. You can't really complain about that. Kyle Connor is one of the best offensive threats in the game with one of the scariest shots in the NHL. So obviously Kyle Connor's a lot of fun. He leads the Jets in points, but there is one area of his game that leaves a bit to be desired, and that is his defensive game. He just really isn't that great of a defensive player, never really has been, but his play in his own zone just really isn't that great, and for that reason it is going to hurt his overall grade to this point. However, if you do have a 50 goal scorer, you're probably not banking on him being that great at defense, so for that reason alone I am going to give him an A instead of an A+, but still an incredible grade, second best grade you can get on this list, and of course these are just my opinions, guys, so Kyle Connor with the A. Let's move on. Next up here, we've got the 36-year-old Blake Wheeler, who's had a pretty solid season, all things considered. He did miss a lot of time with a lower body injury, a pretty unfortunate one that I wouldn't like to have. You guys can go look that up if you would like. But 11 goals, 19 assists for 30 points so far for Blake Wheeler this season, finding chemistry again with Mark Scheifele. Those two have played fantastic together this season. Every once in a while, you see Blake Wheeler turn into the Blake Wheeler of old, and it's a lot of fun. And he has helped this Jets team out a lot more than I thought he would this season. I was a little bit worried with age that maybe he would start to slow down, and he definitely has a little bit. His speed is just not there anymore for Blake. It does look like he's trying to skate through cement at times. However, with all that considered, he is still a very good playmaker, still a really good passer on the power play, and with 11 goals on the season for a 36-year-old, I don't think you can complain that much. Wheeler's been fine in the top 6, however, I do expect the Jets to maybe look for an upgrade in their top 6, whether that bumps Wheeler down or another player, that's yet to be determined. I don't know what bonus is going to do, but with decent defensive ability and pretty good offensive numbers so far this year at 36 years old, I am going to give him a solid B grade. B for ballsy, if you will, but we're going to move on to the next forward. Next forward we have here is Mark Scheifele, the second line center currently of your Winnipeg Jets. He has 26 goals, 14 assists for a total of 40 points this season. Mark has gone off the rails, probably going to set a career high in goals, almost certainly will, and he'll probably touch the 40 goal mark for the first time in his career, which is very exciting. But 40 points through 46 games, pretty good bounce back year for Mark Scheifele considering all of the stuff that happened in the offseason, if we thought he was going to be a Winnipeg Jet or not. But he has really endeared himself to the city, coming up big and just being a big player through the first half of the season for Winnipeg, coming up clutch with big goals and really leading the way offensively for a large portion of the first half. Now, with Kyle Connor obviously not being great defensively, neither is Mark Scheifele, but Mark Scheifele does it in a way that's a lot more noticeable, and he is out of position a lot. If you look back at that Toronto Maple Leafs game, he's just making plays defensively that aren't going to work, and he's just not that great of a defensive player. That's just the truth. Mark Scheifele never really will be, I don't think, but it is way better, way better than seasons prior where he wouldn't even back check. So he is much improved, but obviously there is a lot to be desired there, and Mark Scheifele does hurt the team defensively sometimes, which is unfortunate. That will hurt his player grade, but with a really strong offensive output, 40 points, 46 games with 26 goals, him having a really good year under Rick Bowness, I am going to give Mark Scheifele an A- because he has been a really big part of this team, and through the first 25 games, I think was this team's best player, in the forward core at least. Moving on here, we've got PIERRE-LUC Dubois, who has been an absolute wrecking ball for the Winnipeg Jets this season, having a career year offensively as well, and just being a physical force in all zones. 20 goals, 29 assists for 49 points. That is good enough for third on the team for points. He He has taken his game to another level this season. He's obviously the big bad center that everybody loves to hate if you're not a fan of the Winnipeg Jets. He's a pest. He's really everything that you want him to be. He's even been really good defensively this season. So I'm loving what I'm seeing from Pierre-Luc Dubois. He's such a value to this Jets team. And for that reason, right off the bat, I'm just going to say it, he gets an A. It's not an A+ because he loves to take penalties. He has 44 penalty minutes, and he takes penalties at bad times sometimes, which do hurt the team, and it is pretty frustrating. However, with that said, he is off the walls better than he was just a season ago, and last season I thought he played pretty well, but this year he's consistently great. There's no patches where he's just not playing well. He's always a dog. He's always putting 110 out there all the time. He's must-watch TV. He is the Jets' #1 center right now. He's been playing all year alongside Kyle Connor, and those two have incredible chemistry. They just feed off each other. I love watching these guys play. Pierre-Luc Dubois, you get an A, as I said before. Come playoff time, I think Dubois is going to be a big problem for other teams. I can't wait till April. Next up here, we've got Cole Perfetti, the playmaking rookie, who has 6 goals, 20 assists for 26 points on the season. He's been a lot of fun to watch this season in the top 6, playing with Mark Scheifele and Blake Wheeler at times, playing with Pierre-Luc Dubois a little bit. He's just a guy that really fits well with this team. Will he stay in the top 6 after the trade deadline? I'm not sure. Maybe they do look to have him on the 3rd line or as a depth scorer or as a depth playmaker. Who knows? But for right now, Cole Perfetti in the first half of this season has been pretty much all you can ask for. Maybe you like a little bit more goals from the kid, but honestly, what more can you ask? His vision is alien-like, space alien vision. At least once or twice a game, I watch Cole Perfetti and I wonder, how did he get that pass through there? How did he get that pass through 3 guys' legs? How did he get that up ice? And it just seems like every time he's just able to find that hole, and you can't really say that for a lot of players on this team. For a guy like Cole Perfetti, this young, to be stepping up in the lineup in a top 6 role and being this effective and putting up points, hey, you can't be mad at that at all. Cole Perfetti, right now you get a B. There are stuff that you would love Cole Perfetti to be better at in his game, but being so young and being a little bit undersized, that will come with time as he bulks up and he does get a little bit wiser, gets a little more playing time in the NHL, a little more games played. He'll figure it out. But I do think that he needs to be a little bit more aggressive and a little bit more strong on the puck. I think those are the 2 knocks on Cole Perfetti at this point. But for a guy that's really just kind of replaced Paul Stastny and a couple other guys' roles in this lineup from last season, I think he's done a phenomenal job. And for being so young, being a rookie coming in and doing it's even better. Can't wait to see what his ceiling is in the NHL. But yeah, so be great for Cole Perfetti. Let's move on. Next up is Nikolaj Ehlers, the dashing Dane, arguably the best Winnipeg Jet this season, and that's saying a lot because he's only played 10 games, but man, when he's healthy, he looks absolutely incredible. He missed a lot of this season, a big chunk. He only played 2 games where he had 3 assists until he got hurt, and he didn't return until 8 games ago, and now he's playing like a monster. He's got 3 goals, 10 assists for 13 points on the year. That's 10 points in his last 8 games, guys, since returning. He hasn't missed a beat, and it's very noticeable. Ehlers is the most fun Jet to watch, hands down, on this team. His speed, his playmaking, his scoring ability, all of it. And it's no secret that, hey, he's a good player, but man, I just forgot how good Nikolaj Ehlers really is until I watched him play getting back in the lineup here, just because we haven't seen him for so long. But now that he's healthy, this has been a massive boost to this Winnipeg Jets team, and it's crazy to me how well he's played since having such a big injury. If he played from, game 1 to game 82 this year, I think that Nikolaj Ehlers could have gotten Hart votes. And I don't think that's too controversial. This guy has played out of his mind this season so far, and I expect it to continue. Right now, he is the best Winnipeg Jets forward. So much fun to watch. We will see what happens heading into the playoffs, and he will be relied on big time down the stretch here. So with all that said, Nikolaj Ehlers, you get the elusive A+ grade here. The speed, the senses, the scoring ability, you just can't match it on this team. Ehlers has been the Jets' best forward in the games that he has played. I'm not going to, take marks off because he got injured. That's just not fair to him. But 13 points in 10 games thus far. Ehlers, you get an A+. The last forward we're going to talk about today is Adam Lowry, center for your Winnipeg Jets, the 3rd line center. And hey, he's viewed as more of a checker in the NHL, and he definitely is, but Rick Bowness has unlocked his offensive ability. 7 goals, 16 assists this year for 23 points. Who saw this coming? Last season he had 21 points and his career high is 29. Adam looks like he's about to go on pace for a career year points wise, and he hasn't let up defensively either. Adam's been a great player for this Jets team and really one of their best defensive players, as he usually always is. The penalty kill this season has been particularly great. The Jets are top 5 in penalty kill, and Adam's a big reason why. Always blocking shots, being able to make the smart play and not trying to do too much, always flipping it out when he can. And yeah, I'm just a big Adam Lowry fan defensively for what he's been able to do this season. I've had questions about Adam before being a legit third-line center. I thought in seasons prior he's fit a lot better as a 4C, but with the added offense and the incredible defense, I think that he's a fine third-line center, and coming into the playoffs, I think that he'll be a really valued piece for the Jets. So Lowry, I have decided to give you a B grade, just because there are times where he does fall invisible offensively, but you know, for the most part is just a really solid defensive player. A B grade I think is very fair for Adam Lowry. Now with that said, we're going to go take a look at some of the depth forwards for the Jets. We've got Morgan Barron here with a B-. I thought he's played fine this season. He's been a really good partner with Adam Lowry. Those two have had fantastic chemistry, and through the first half, I just really like what Morgan Barron brings. You'd like to see him, you know, bring a little bit more offense, but I believe that will come with time. But just a really good defensive player. A lot like Adam Lowry, I'd say, but just maybe a little bit more offensively minded. But Barron, I gave a B-. Sam Gagner, moving on here, I gave him a B- as well. He's been in and out of the lineup, as a lot of these depth players have been, but he's had chances in the top 6 with Pierre-Luc Dubois and Kyle Connor, and he's flourished. He's put up big points, and he's put up goals when it mattered. 8 goals and 2 game winners. Sam Gagner, you are a fantastic player in the bottom 6. I loved this addition when the Jets signed him in the offseason, and I'm just loving it even more now with 8 goals from a guy that's going to be playing like in your bottom 6, probably your 4th line going into the playoffs. You gotta love it. So a B- for Sam Gagner. Kevin Stenlund, you know, a C+. I'm just giving it to him because he's just a 4th line center. He doesn't do a whole lot. He's good defensively. He has edged out David Gustafsson, it looks like, for that 4C spot for the moment anyway. So a C+ grade I give to Stenlund. Johnson Fialbi, another player, you know, he's really fast, he loves to shoot the puck, and he's come up big in a few spots. He's had some games where he looks great, and then he's had some games where I think he's the worst player on the ice. I'm giving him a C+ because he has brought quite a bit of offense. If he can start hitting the net, I think that he could be a lot more impactful for this team, but Johnson Fialbi loves missing the net, I've noticed. So a C+ grade, maybe a little bit generous to him, but we're going to move on here to Carson Kuhlman, a waiver pickup from the Seattle Kraken. I'm going to give him a C grade. Really good defensive player, but that's about it. He's just pretty much out there to shut down the other team. He's not going to add a lot offensively. He has had a lot of chances to score, just hasn't been able to really bury them. He does have the 1 empty net goal, but just more of a defensive specialist there. Sakumalainen, I'm giving a C, just because, hey, you know, I know he brings offense, and I know a lot of people like him for being aggressive and everything, but he doesn't bring a lot to this team, and especially since he returned from injury, I'm just not loving what I'm seeing from Sakumalainen, and I'm not really sure why he's currently on the 3rd line for this Jets team. I'm gonna give him a C. David Gustafsson, I was really hoping this was the year he'd come out and really be that guy to be the 4C, and he's played fantastic defensively, one of the better defensive players on this team actually, but just an absolute black hole offensively, and that really sucks because I love David Gustafsson, but maybe next year is the year where he breaks out a little bit more, maybe he improves in the offseason, but right now, gonna give him a C grade. And lastly, I included Jansen Harkins. He is currently with the Manitoba Moose, but he has been up with injuries this season. He's fine, but Jansen Harkins is one of these players that works so hard to really do a whole lot of nothing. And I like the offense that he brings. I know he's put up points this year, but he's just not that great of a player. He'll show up for 2 games and you think, wow, this is the year that Harkins is broken out, and he really doesn't do anything. After that, you don't see him for another 10 games. So for that reason, a C-, Jansen Harkins. Maybe that's a little bit harsh, but that's just how I feel about the situation and the player. Probably don't want that guy in your lineup heading into the playoffs if you expect to make a deep run. But with all that, that is the end of the forwards. Let's hop in to the defense. First up, we've got Josh Morrissey. Right off the bat, I'm not even going to waste time. A+. Josh Morrissey with 8 goals, 42 assists, and 50 points. Currently 2nd in the NHL in points among defensemen. This man is a monster. He is broken out under head coach Rick Bowness this year and really showed that he is one of the best defensemen in the NHL. It is super rare to see Josh Morrissey out of position or not making a play to make up for the bad one that he made. He is so good and absolutely going to be, I believe, one of the top 3 Norris candidates heading into the offseason. If he wins, I don't know. I think that Erik Karlsson's got a pretty large lead there. But hey, Josh Morrissey right up there with the best of them this season. I'm very impressed, and he's been a big part of the power play success as well. He is currently second on the team in points, only behind Kyle Connor, who is 55. Morrissey is 50. He has already smashed his previous career high in points, which was 37 just a season ago, and he already is 50. And that was in 79 games last year. He's only played 46 games this year. What a year it's been for Josh, and I'm just super proud of the guy. He's really emerged as the #1 defenseman on this team, and really maybe even a top 10 defenseman in the NHL. Next up here, we've got Dylan DeMelo, Josh Morrissey's partner, playing the right side. He's got 2 goals, 12 assists for 14 points. I know what you're thinking. Dylan DeMelo is putting up offensive numbers, and he really is. He is having such a good year. 14 points already for the Jets, and this isn't a guy that usually puts up points. Dylan DeMelo is a very defensive defenseman, and he's very good at that. But, you know, with already 2 goals this season, he only has 3 total as a Winnipeg Jet during his tenure here. So that's very impressive for Dylan DeMelo to be showing up offensively and making plays too. 12 assists, that's nothing to, you know, slouch on about. And for a guy like Dylan DeMelo, who is very defensive, if you're able to get that kind of offense out of a guy, and a guy that's going to probably finish with around 20 to 25 points, that's pretty awesome. And that's just such an added bonus. It's so valuable when you're able to get just that much more out of players like him. DeMelo is one of this team's best penalty killers, and he's just very solid, very steady, very rarely has a bad game. For all of that said, I am going to give him an A-. Dylan DeMelo is a high-impact defenseman. Really, wherever he goes and whoever he really plays with, they play great as well. So Dylan DeMelo, you get an A-. Love what I'm seeing from him through the first half of the season anyway, and I expect it to continue. Him and Josh Morrissey having an incredible year together, and I expect that those two will be playing with each other for the next little while. Next up on the list, we've got Brendan Dillon, who has had a resurgence since last season, not really being that great of an impact player for the Jets, but I think he's played very well under Rick Bowness. He does have 1 goal, 12 assists for 13 points, and again, hey, 12 assists for Brendan Dillon, that's not too bad, probably on a similar path for points like Dylan DeMelo is, maybe around that 20 to 25 point range, but I am pretty happy with how Brendan Dillon's played this season. I don't think he's lighting the world on fire or anything. He's not the most consistent defenseman, but I think he's pretty good, you know, for the shutdown role. He's a very good penalty killer. He's a big reason why the penalty kill has been better this season, and I like what I'm seeing from him. He's adding a little touch of offense. I think it would go a long way if Brendan Dillon played away from a guy like Neal Pionk. I don't think that Pionk brings the best out in Brendan Dillon. I think he does a lot of defending when Pionk messes up. We're going to talk about Neal Pionk in a minute, but Dillon honestly reminds me a lot of how Morrissey was playing with Tucker Poolman in the 2020-2021 season in the bubble year, and just really having to clean up after guys' messes. And I think if he was with a guy that was a little bit more stable, like Nate Schmidt, and it's been proven that when he plays with Nate Schmidt, he's been a lot better, I think that he would get a higher grade. For Brendan Dillon, all things considered, I do like his game, and I think that he has been one of the Jets' better defensemen this season. I am going to give him a solid B grade there. I don't expect the Jets to go out and make a move for a defenseman at the trade deadline. Maybe they, you know, try to upgrade a guy, I'm not sure. But Brendan Dillon, more than likely going to be on the second pairing for the Jets heading into the playoffs, and I think that he could be pretty impactful. Now, we're going to talk about a guy that's a little bit controversial. A lot of people love him, a lot of people not so much, and I'm kind of in the middle with Neal Pionk. Pionk has put up 7 goals, 12 assists for 19 points this season, playing the right side, usually with Brendan Dillon, and while he is fun offensively, he does not bring a whole lot defensively, and that has been so evident this year, and it's really kind of hurt this team. Halfway through this season, Neal Pionk has been arguably the Jets' worst defensive defenseman, and not like that's his game or anything, but it has just been a black hole. Constant bad turnovers, just really ill-advised passes. He just hasn't been the player that we're used to seeing Neal Pionk be. We're not seeing that guy that shut down Connor McDavid in the playoffs a couple seasons ago. We're just not getting that level of play out of Pionk. And hey, I love the guy, but he's just been not that great. And PIONK's not a bad player offensively, but he just honestly hasn't really showed a lot there either. 7 goals, 12 assists, 19 points. It's not bad, but we've seen this guy really dominate, and I know that has to do a lot with him not playing on the top power play unit, but even then, I just don't think that PIONK's been that great this season, and it's too bad. I hope that he picks it up in the back half of the year, but for right now, I'm going to give Neal Pionk a pretty harsh C+, and that might even be a little bit generous to some of you. I just don't think that he's been that great of a D-man, but, you know, putting up 20 points, that's fine. I do think that there's a ton of room for improvement, obviously, and I do think that he can reach it. He just needs to settle down and stop being Captain Chaos. Really, whoever he plays with, I feel like he's stressing them out. As I talked about with Brendan Dillon earlier, I think that Brendan Dillon's done a lot of covering for Neal Pionk this year, and so I'm really hoping that that changes, and the Jets are going to need him to play better if they expect to go far in the playoffs. If he's playing top 4 minutes, Neal Pionk needs to step up, and that is the player to watch, in my opinion. So now Nate Schmidt is up next. He's going to be the last player that we look at individually for the defenseman. He's got 4 goals, 4 assists, 8 points this year. A little bit lower than you would like. Obviously, he's missed some time, but Nate Schmidt is known a little bit more for his offense, and he really hasn't brought a lot of that this year. Nate Schmidt is one of those players that I find just amazing because he's very good at obviously being that great locker room guy, and he's always funny. We've all seen those clips of Nate Schmidt being a goof in the locker room, and I love the guy, but he is so inconsistent that it is crazy. One game he'll play with Brendan Dillon and he'll look great, and I think those guys complement each other very well, but then you put him with Dylan Samberg and sometimes he looks like a great partner for him and sometimes he looks like the worst partner for him. So it's really hard to gauge how I feel about Nate Schmidt, but when he is on, he is a pretty solid defenseman. I think he makes some very good plays, but when he's off his game, he's turning pucks over, making ill-advised passes, not getting the puck out of the zone, and just a little bit of a mess. With all of this said for Nate Schmidt at the halfway mark this year, I'm going to be a little generous. I'm going to give him a B- just because we've seen him play well with guys like Brendan Dillon and with Josh Morrissey in very rare times. I think that he's played fine. But yeah, we're going to give him a B-. I really want to give him a C+, but a B- I think is fair to Nate Schmidt. Hopefully he can continue to play more consistently into the second half of the season. Now we're going to talk about the remaining players here. Dylan Samberg, I give him a B-. He has played fantastic as of late in the back half of the first half of the season. Early on he was a little bit shaky, but I think a B- rating for Samberg is very fair. He's turned into a very good penalty killer and a guy that's proved that he can drive a little bit of offense. Next up we've got Ville Heinola. I'm giving him a C+. In the games that he has played, he has looked pretty solid. However, he hasn't been able to really grasp, aside from one game where he played fantastic, he had an assist, his only point of the year, but he really hasn't been able to grasp that 6D spot like I really thought he would this year, and it's a little bit disappointing. I do think that he could be trade bait heading into the trade deadline. I love Ville, but he just really hasn't been able to step up and take control of that role. Logan Stanley, I'm giving a C+ as well. He hasn't been fantastic, and obviously he's been out with injury for a lot of the season. However, he has been better than last season, I have noticed, and when he's playing with Dylan DEMELO, obviously that makes him a better player. I think Stanley has calmed his game down a little bit. He does make a lot of defensive errors still, and that is the reason he is in the C range. However, I don't think that he is really that guy for the 6D spot either. I think Samberg is winning this battle thus far into the season anyway, and I think that Stanley could be a guy that gets moved at the deadline as well, or it will just be the Jets' 7th defenseman. And lastly, we've got Kyle Capobianco, who's a fine defenseman, plays okay offensively, plays okay defensively, but just overall, in my opinion, not better than the 3 guys in front of him. I'm giving him a C grade. So next up here, we are going to go over to the goaltenders, and we've got Connor Hellebuyck, 22-12-1 record on the season, 2.43 goals against average with a save percentage of .923 with 3 shutouts thus far on the year. Connor Hellebuyck having another banner year and will be in a fight for that Vezina trophy. Connor Hellebuyck, or Connor Veznabuck as a lot of us in Winnipeg like to call him, has just played absolutely incredible this year, stealing games for the Jets a lot in the first bit of the season and coming up big pretty much every game for the Jets. He's so reliable. There are very few games where he really just has a bad game, and when he does have a bad game, he usually steps up and the next game makes up for it. Hellebuyck, just an incredible player. I believe he's the best US-born goaltender that's really ever played the game, and I do think that when it's all said and done, he will be an instant Hall of Famer, first ballot for sure. I think a lot of people sleep on Connor Hellebuyck and don't really know what they have with him as fans of this team, and I think that he's even now very underappreciated with the fan base and with the league. He will be headed to the All-Star game, and it should be no surprise, guys. I'm giving Connor Hellebuyck an A+, just for being the heart and soul of this team, stealing games and coming up big when the Jets need him most. You can't ask for a guy to do much more than Connor Hellebuyck has done this season. I don't think you can ask any more out of the guy. Just a workhorse, he wants to play all 82 games, and you can't blame him. This guy has a lot of fun winning, and he has a lot of fun playing hockey for this Jets club. I love Connor Hellebuyck, A+, no surprise there. And now, we've only got one more guy to talk about, and that's Dave Rittich, who, surprisingly, has played pretty well this season. I was not expecting Dave Rittich to come in and be the backup. I honestly was thinking that he'd play so bad in preseason that they'd put him on waivers and maybe try to get another goaltender off waivers, like Connor Ingram or something like that. But Dave Rittich, with a B, that's the grade I'm going to give him. I'm pretty impressed with him. He's played much better than I expected him to. Obviously, he's going to have a bad game or two. He's not this guy that's going to come in and just absolutely shut the door every time. But I think that he's played very well, and I think that he's been very calm in the net. I really like Dave Rittich as the backup with this team. Do the Jets look for a backup goalie? I think maybe they were considering it heading into the playoffs, but now I don't think they are. Like, I don't want to see Rittich in the playoffs, don't get me wrong, but 7 wins, 4 losses with a .259 goals against average and a .908 save percentage isn't that bad. I thought it was going to be a lot worse this year, guys. But you know what? He picks up some wins. He comes in when the Jets need him, and he's reliable enough to be a solid backup goaltender. And Dave Rittich, I am so sorry that I complained about you and everything like that earlier on in the season. You have proved me wrong. B grade for Dave Rittich, I think, is very reasonable. But with all that said, guys, I am going to end this video. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a comment down below if you agreed with my, player grades. Did you think that I was a little bit too favorable? Did you think that I was a little bit too harsh? I'd love to hear from you guys. Leave a like on the video and subscribe if you're new to keep up with all of my Jets content. Lots of fun stuff coming here with the trade deadline approaching. So thanks so much for watching, everybody, and I will see you in the next one. Go Jets, go. Bye-bye.